Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Movie Mates podcast. I am Matthew, joined by my one of co-hosts and best friends.
Callum.
Hey man, great to see you. So,
Great
on
to see
today's
you.
episode, we're back with our Disney installment, part 11 today, where we're covering four more Disney films. And I'm just going to pass over to Callum to describe what four Disney films that we're going to be reviewing today. So, Callum, after you, dude.
I think Matthew, you can probably agree this has been a nightmare. A lot of the Disney films are dreadful. And today I had a sort of like a fresh excitement. This was a whole set of Disney films that even after watching them, they defy the standard Disney formula. There's no princesses.
Agreed. Yeah.
They take risks. There's something new and different in each one of them, and the fact that none of them are musical is just a plus.
It's great.
So I knew going into today's one that we'd be looking at some movies that are very different to ones that we'd seen before.
Sure.
Still had a bad time. Did not enjoy myself, as we sort of discussed off the podcast. Was not pleasant, and it's not as though I hate every film I watch. I probably enjoy more than I don't enjoy, and I would say that that's still the case here. But they were a slog to get through, and that's just a consistent pattern with Disney. I think I think the best episode we've ever done was the one that was the best set of films that we ever reviewed was the episode where we talked about Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King. That's just an unbelievable.
That was a classic.
Set,
Classic.
Yeah, that was incredible, and I just don't think anything can top that roster. Even though I was hopeful that today would be. For once I wasn't being pessimistic. I expected to like these because today we're talking about Atlantis: The Lost Empire, Lilo and Stitch, Treasure Planet, and Brother Bear. And I thought looking at those externally, there's something unique and different about every one of those, and that is still true.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about maybe some fundamental issues we had with the films themselves. And me and Matthew actually have some differing views today, so that should be interesting.
Yeah.
Brother Bear, I think, is going to be a point of contention because I'm not going to be questioning the quality, just the message. So I think there will maybe be some back and forth there where you fundamentally disagree with me.
We'll see. We'll get into it. I mean, I always like getting into we Disney films like this because a lot of them do have conflicting messages and stuff. So it's going to be I think it's going to be a good episode. And I don't have a huge amount of notes on these films, to be honest with you, buddy. Especially Treasure Planet and Atlantis, to be honest with you. But the other two have a decent amount, but probably a little less than average overall. Just before we kick off today's episode, thank you to everyone who's recently subscribed, and please be sure to comment your thoughts on these dates and films down below. We'd love to hear them, and of course, our email is always there if you want to ask us any questions or podcast suggestions at moviematespodcast@gmail.com. That's always in the description for you guys, as well as time codes if you want to skip to your favorite movie. But we insist that you watch the whole way through because why wouldn't you want to?
It's not like we're not getting money from you, so at least give us the satisfaction of some watch time, But Matthew, how do you feel about hate mail? If we were
bring
to
it in, give all the
some
hate.
people to email us.
I
don't know. I'm not particularly thick-skinned, but if it's funny, it's fine. I think if an insult's funny, then you can look past its hurtful intent.
One comment I did appreciate from the guys over the United Stand was someone said, "Hello, much love from the United Stand." I was like, that's a very sweet thing to say. I'm glad they just didn't come over and shit in our content. That was quite nice of them. So the United Stand guys, you guys are all lovely. But yeah, just before we kick off, spoilers as always for these films, just in case you're new here.
Yeah, I think we need to start prefacing that because we finally have a bit of an audience that isn't just our close friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for every film, we have spoilers, and then in the classic Movie Mates fashion, we'll definitely have a wee laugh and a giggle, and maybe we're maybe not the most analytical reviewers you'll ever see, but we definitely try to make the most of the humor and stuff.
I was thinking about this the other day because we're not incredibly surface level, we're not it looked pretty, it's a good film, but we're also not talking about the meaninglessness of life and the depth of the metaphors because we're not studying this film, we're just saying why we did or did not enjoy it. So I think we ride the line between those two extremes.
Yeah, agreed, buddy, agreed. So is it the first film Atlantis? It is, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Do you not watch these films in chronological order?
No. Do you?
Maverick? Yeah,
I know, what can I say?
I always make I at least like make the notes section chronological if I don't watch them in that order.
I just go whatever one I want to watch the most. So I just start off with that, and then the one that I have at the end is the one that I least wanted to watch. It appears so. Atlantis got that got that treatment. But that being
Yeah,
said,
usually if I follow that, like usually if I don't do them in chronological order, I usually do the one I least want to watch first, and then
that's
the
a good
one I
idea
appreciate
actually.
most last, because usually we make a time arrangement, and then I'm like rushing to watch the last film because I don't want to delay.
Sometimes it's me, to
So
be fair. Sometimes
so
sometimes I sleep in, so
oh,
it's.
rarely.
But no, that's part of the charm of the channel, part of the charm. But one thing that surprised me about this film, buddy, is that Michael J. Fox is in this, which I thought was
Yeah,
pretty cool.
massively.
From Back to the Future, we're big fans of that, and I think his voice—he's actually quite a talented voice actor as well. I think he's quite good as Milo.
Oh, I thought that wasn't a finished point, but okay. Yes, I agree. Uh, and if we want to talk about just sort of the fundamental things about this film, there's obviously the voice acting, which I think is incredible across the board. But if we want to talk about the animation, because that's usually what we talk about, sort of in our beginning thoughts, the animation quality, or if it's something new. Because I would say pretty much a blanket comment across these four films today is that the animation pretty much like plateaued, and it's all the same quality, and it's pretty much all the same style except for this one. So I would say we can pretty much make a blanket comment of like Lilo and Stitch, Treasure Planet, Brother Bear. They all have good animation.
Yeah,
Nothing particularly unique about the style. But here the animation style is a bit more angular, and sort of like the opening sequence and the poster that was on Disney Plus both sort of concerned me that the animation style was going to be quite experimental. But thankfully it wasn't, because I do prefer more traditional animation, even though like the faces were a bit more angular.
yeah. No, I'd agree with you on that one, dude, for sure. I had a note here. I think the water animation is generally quite good. Obviously Atlantis, you'd expect there to a large portion of the film to be at least underwater. So I thought the animation was very good. And you're right. I think the word angular is a perfect description for it, buddy. It is. It's quite unique, and it sort of reminded me a little bit of the animation of Treasure Planet, in the sense that it's 3D animation mixed with 2D animation. So I thought it was quite unique, and I think it works for the tone of the film, because I think one thing we can agree on for most, if not all, of these Disney films, they don't feel like Disney films at all.
Yeah, because this is the first one that it's like a mythical tale. Well, I mean, there's sort of been like King Arthur before, stuff that is like you know of like
I know what you mean.
like
I know what you mean. Yeah,
a
Black
mystical or
Cauldron kind of.
magical.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is the first time there's been that sort of like folklore. And then Lilo and Stitch is like the first alien film, and then Treasure Planet is like the first like space exploration film. And Brother Bear's kind of just shit, isn't it? It's kind of just shit or brave. But
it's a good point,
so I
actually.
mean, it came first. At least they have at least that to say. I would say like Brother Bear is also a bit like the Good Dinosaur, of like the whole time they're just trying to prove their worth to their family, and then
Yeah, it
come home
is
and like
actually.
press their
Yeah,
hand or whatever. I mean, in that case, their paw, against like the the
yeah,
the, the rock.
yeah.
But I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Well,
I've
one
lost
thing
myself.
one thing I'll say about these films today that we're talking about is Atlantis and Treasure Planet are remarkably similar, I think, in both the plot and also animation style. And it's interesting because I think both of those did come out in 2001, or at least between a year of each other. So it's a pretty peculiar choice for Disney to choose two films that are remarkably similar back to back. I thought that's quite strange. But that being said, I think this film it's a departure from what we're used to. I mean, if we compare it to the last episode where we talked about Emperor's New Groove and films like that, it feels a lot different to that kind of tale. I think that's maybe a strength of Disney's, is that they're not afraid to delve out to talk about a dog with superpowers, or in this case an explorer in the 1910s looking for Atlantis. So it's quite unique. And that being said, it's I gotta commend Disney for that sort of risk that they, as we said in the last podcast, they don't really take as much these days.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned Michael J. Fox as Milo, and he is the lead character of this film. And I was just wondering, as a question to you about the kind of films that you prefer, the characters you prefer, what kind of action hero do you prefer? Like, do you prefer an excited nerd like Milo, or like the cool guy action persona of Indiana Jones? Typically, I'd say I prefer more the Milo. I mean, I sort of specify that it's the action persona of Indiana Jones, because when he goes back to being a professor, he sort of is like a timid nerd, and Indiana Jones is more of a character. But I feel like that is a persona that's seen through a lot of adventure films. Dora and the Lost City of Gold, and other better films.
Yeah.
But I would say to me, like, I prefer the Milo type character, just because you feel that they've earned the discovery rather than just like robbed the grave.
It's a good shout. It's a good shout. Like, I always prefer, I'm a sucker for romantic comedies, as are you. So I sort of prefer the action hero who always has a love interest, and that's why maybe I quite like Milo in this film, because he starts a relationship with I think her name's Kida or Kida,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's quite sweet. Whereas in Treasure Planet, that's kind of absent for the most part, which I think is quite unusual these days. Actually, I think that was quite rare that there wasn't actually a romantic interest there. Well, not that I can recall anyway. I might be wrong, but I think it's interesting because I always quite like an action hero who has, a romantic counterpart. Michael J. Fox is a good example. With Marty McFly Back to the Future, he always has his girlfriend there, and also his mom is attracted to him in those films, which is quite strange as well, isn't it? But anyway, you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
sort of, that's why we like Peter Parker, I think, because he's a relatable character. He struggles with relationships and struggles with life. So I think you're right, buddy. I think that sort of timid, sort of everyman character is probably the way to go.
Yeah, and if we want to sort of launch into the story, we see this expedition to Atlantis is begun, and then Milo is sort of, I mean, he's not necessarily like sort of the spearhead of the team, but really it's his mission.
Yeah.
And there's an incident with the what's the name of the creature? The
Leviathan.
The Leviathan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the ship's attacked by the Leviathan, and it's just it astounds me because Milo seems like such like a pondering, questioning, introspective person, and it just shocks me that he isn't shaken by the number of people who were killed in that ship when it was destroyed. Like,
Yeah.
they barely, like, the rest of the crew barely reflect on it, which is typical, as you would expect from the mercenaries that they turn out to be.
Mhm.
But like this introspective, guy who,
I know, it's weird, isn't it?
it's his grandfather's and his mission. You would think he would feel some sense of responsibility.
It's weird. It's funny you mention that, because the tale of this film, that Milo is following his granddad's footsteps, it's remarkably similar to to the Transformers films with Sam Witwicky, like and his Sam Witwicky's following his grandfather's footsteps to uncover the Transformers. So it's really interesting. Like, it's I thought it was interesting, and like we sort of said, it does go against Milo's character to sort of forget all that stuff, isn't it? Like, and maybe that's why he is quite unique in that sense. We've seen characters who are like very similar to Milo, like Peter Parker. Like, he is always racked with guilt when that sort of instance would happen, whereas Milo is none the wiser. But no, it's interesting because I think this film, an argument could probably be made for, like, it feels to me as a potential cross between Treasure Planet meets Little Mermaid kind of vibe, and I thought that was surprisingly fresh, actually, given that I think Little Mermaid was probably one of our favorite ones, to be honest, wasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely was. Yeah, I sort of see what you mean about like sort of the expedition sort of element of Treasure Planet, but sort of the mystical underwater world of the
No,
Little
exactly.
Mermaid.
Yeah, it's a good point,
that's
actually.
I think that's a really good parallel. And I'd mentioned previously that it turns out that most of the cast of the film are actually mercenaries there to just steal the source of power.
Mhm.
And to me, that was a little too predictable. I knew that immediately, and I'd never seen this film. I mean, obviously this is a kid's film, and
Yeah.
obviously I'm a cynical adult. I'm just like, they must be evil. They must be betraying them. But I think that they could have reduced that a little by casting a more likable sounding voice for Rourke, who's the mercenary leader,
Yeah,
and then sort of
absolutely.
have like this shift in the tone of voice after the reveal. I think that could have been easy.
Good
Because
point.
they like you couldn't get more of a mercenary type voice than the person that
Yeah.
they cast.
Agreed. I agree with that. And it's kind of a similar element, Callum, to what we've been saying. Like, there is no air of mystery around Disney villains. They're both drawn, and their voices are characterized by their evil nature and evil plans. Like, we've seen Scar in The Lion King. I mean, that is the most evil voice in Hollywood, in my opinion. Like, it's what's his name? He plays Alfred. You know it, right?
Jeremy Irons.
Jeremy Irons. Like his voice work's incredible, but like there's no air of mystery around that twist. And the same goes for here with Rourke. You know, I think it's very obvious where the film's going to in that sense. So yeah, I'd agree with you, dude. Agree with you.
And I think that Milo is, I mean, you know, he's obviously a generous guy, but he seems far too forgiving of his crewmates. You know, they could have easily, I mean, well, they're selfish actions, which, in my opinion, you know, the ship is destroyed and it's his mission and everything, but it turns out that they have a mission that's actually different. So they should take responsibility for the death of the people there. He, I think, should feel responsibility, but the fact that he forgives them for being responsible for that and for, you know, trying to steal the power source that gives the Atlanteans life, it just surprised me that he forgave them so easily.
Yeah, agreed. One of my favorite side characters, speaking of the crew, is I think his name's Sweet, isn't it? I thought he was actually a real charming addition to the film. And like it's weird because like I think Treasure Planet, which is a film very similar to this one, like it has a lot of great side characters in there, and I think this film also does as well. And like I think I would have actually I would have liked to see more of Atlantis, to be honest with you, mate. I think you know there's a fair amount of it in it, but it's not like for a film called Atlantis, the Lost Empire, or whatever. Like I would like to see more personally.
Yeah, and it only really seemed like, you know, this is meant to be this ancient civilization under the sea. You know, there's meant to be this level of exceptionalism about it, but really the only exceptional thing about it is that it's under the sea and that it's hidden.
Yeah.
It's not that like, you know, if you made this like huge discovery, you would have probably higher expectations of the level of like, you know, powers it has or the mysticism or behind it. You know, really it's the story and the context behind the city rather than the city itself that's impressive.
Yeah.
You know, like when I was going to try and make up an example on the spot. I failed.
Well,
Let's move on.
I have a question for you. Do you think Atlantis exists or has existed? Because it's sort of a thing like in sort of mythology these days, where it's like a lot of people think it does, a lot of people think it doesn't. Like, where's your head at on this one?
Yeah, I think it's just probably a myth. You know, this city under the sea. I think I'm a fairly logical person. I don't really have
That's fair, yeah.
spiritual or religious beliefs, and you know, I don't really know what would sustain a city. I mean, well, I think it's perfectly plausible that, you know, a city was torn down, you know, through like seismic activity, and then it fell into the sea.
Yeah, that's what I probably think would happen. Yeah.
You know, that there's a bubble around it and people living there. You know, of course, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think, I mean, you know, like Pompeii was destroyed by, you know, the
volcano,
Vesuvius erupting. So, you know, if there was an equally like, you know, terrible event, you know, of like seismic activity bringing something into the sea, that makes as much sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, 100%, dude, 100%.
And you know, at the very beginning, you know, Kita's mother is sort of like lifted up into the sky by sort of a tractor beam, and you know, it's discovered you know, near the end of the film that she was absorbed into the crystal and that she's a host for the heart of Atlantis. But did you sort of have an expectation of more of like an extraterrestrial plot?
That's what I was kind of thinking, yeah, with the characterization of that classic image of an extraterrestrial. But it's interesting because she sort of like becomes one with the crystal. But there's an interesting thing I wanted to ask you. Like by the end of the film, we see that Milo gives like the crystal that gives the Atlanteans their ageless ability to the crew members and Whitmore. Do you think that would then pass over to them to give them that ability as well or not?
I think there's a lot of inconsistency because, you know, Kita's mother was absorbed into the crystal in order to protect the city from the water. So they were pushed under the water, but her hosting abilities, you know, created the bubble around Atlantis. But then Kita is absorbed into the crystal and she protects them from a crisis, but then she's able to be pulled out of the crystal, but her mother isn't.
Yeah, it's a bit strange.
You know, so that I sort of was a bit iffy on that, because if then the host can only protect them from one disaster, then surely someone else now has to be, you know, taken as the host, and it can't be her dad because he already died before he was absorbed in. So
yeah,
I think it's a little messy. I don't think the powers are transferable, at least in the logic that I could glean from it. So
that's fair.
I think it was maybe just a good luck token of sorts.
Agreed, mate.
I think the one thing that is incredibly rare in this film is that, like, it's very rare that you see the hero of a Disney film directly cause the death of the antagonist. Like usually it's, through their own stupidity. It's either an accident or, they go to kill a hero and they fall, like in Tarzan, the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Yeah, which you loved apparently. Like the evil witch is just, or the evil queen is just struck by lightning, and
That
then
was the first
rock
film.
falls out from under her.
That was the first Disney film we reviewed, wasn't it? Snow White.
Yeah, it was.
God, that was ages
And
ago.
that was quite a high standard they set, and then significantly failed to meet it. But it's usually them falling or really it being a result of their actions. But Milo just slashes Rourke's wrist. Like,
what a guy! What a guy! I know.
He just murders him.
I know, it's really unusual. Like we've sort of seen, like you said, you've given examples, buddy, of like Tarzan and films like that where it's the accidental death in like this. This film is quite rare, and it does just show outright death. you know what I mean?
It shows them dying, and it shows how they died, and it's the hero's fault.
Yeah, and this hero is supposed to be like a really young sort of man about town, kind of young everyman, but no, like Milo's just. I do quite like it. I'm glad he did stay with Kida in the end instead of Atlantis. I thought that was a good decision. It's sort of a similar thing to like Little Mermaid with Eric and stuff like that. But no,
it is iffy. I don't have anything further on Atlantis. That was probably. Oh no, I actually have quite a lot for the other ones. I was gonna say that's the most that I have for any film, but Treasure Planet is a bit dense actually.
Well, I'd love to hear your rating for this one, buddy. What would you give it out of 10 in the classic movie mates fashion?
It was something different. It defied my expectations, but sometimes that's not a good thing. I thought it was going to maybe, because you sort of mentioned that it's a bit similar to Treasure Planet, and I thought maybe that's intentional, and maybe, with this film, Lilo and Stitch, and Treasure Planet, that's like their alien era. That was like a set of 3 films that is meant to be, sort of linked by the idea that, they're all extraterrestrial. So it didn't, it didn't meet my expectations. It was not. It was as different as I expected it to be, but not as fun. I thought the villains were a bit obvious, but not bad. I liked all the side characters, even though they turned out to be dirtbags. But by the end, we're meant to, I guess, accept that they've redeemed themselves. I don't know about that. But generally, I had a good time. I had some issues with the ending. That who would abandon their life. Just to, like, surely the achievement is that you've seen Atlantis, you've discovered it, not that you live there, because then what was the point?
Yeah.
Surely the point is to discover and then bring that knowledge back. It's the idea of sharing knowledge. It's not, discovering and staying there.
It's a good point.
I didn't think that was consistent with how Milo was presented. But generally I had a good time. I thought the animation was really sharp, really nice. I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, I'd agree with everything you said, buddy. I think the voice acting, especially with Michael J. Fox, he's great. Milo, I quite like as a character. I think the animation has to be applauded for the most part, and because it was quite similar to Treasure Planet, Little Mermaid, I quite liked it. A little bit boring in places, but that being said, I quite like the romance, which is always a bonus for these Disney films. So I'd give it a 7.5. A perfectly serviceable film that if it came on the TV, you'd probably watch it.
I like how before the podcast we sort of give our like very rough ideas, and I said I quite enjoyed it, and you're like, oh, I didn't like it at all, and then you end up giving a higher rating than me.
Yeah.
Like I think your standard of things you don't like is like just higher. Like you'll be like, oh yeah, I quite enjoyed that. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
And I'm like, awesome.
Oh, I definitely overrated so many films so much.
I feel like we're definitely going to clash on Lilo and Stitch.
I think so. Is that the next one?
Yeah, it is the next one.
I bloody love this one.
As I mentioned previously, this is the first proper Disney alien movie. I don't usually like alien films. There's been some exceptions in the past that we've covered. If you want to go through some of our playlists and check out similar videos, go ahead and do that. We haven't talked about the Alien franchise itself, but certainly films involving aliens. And I'm not usually a fan. Didn't like this.
Aww.
It wasn't actually the alien elements. It was more Lilo and Nani that I had an issue with, and we'll talk about that. Because if you're meant to spearhead a Disney film, you have to be an admirable and likable character. I did not find Lilo or Nani. I feel they did not meet the criteria.
Each to their own. I respect your opinion, of course. For this one, I think this is going to definitely be another case where my nostalgia definitely shines through for this. I love this one so much. And I think, we sort of mentioned this a little bit in the Rocky podcast about how the location of those films is quite integral to the character. And I actually think Hawaii is such a great setting for a film, especially a kid's Disney film. It's so vibrant. They've got Elvis going on there. And it's quite an unusual setting because it never really struck me as a kid that Hawaii is like in America. Well, it's an American state. I'm not sure if it's a state, but I think it's a province or territory.
It is a state, yeah.
A state. Like, it never really struck me because I always thought it was its own thing. But no, it's interesting to know that it's actually an American state. And no, I think it's a really charming yet funny film with a very unusual plot, isn't it? Like, it's a strange one for the first Alien film for sure.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you about the setting of Hawaii, because I think there's a lot of culture to bring in there, the fact that they, the idea of ohana meaning family, I think that is quite integral to the film, to the message.
Mm-hmm.
And, if they've brought that in from Hawaiian culture, I think it's a really respectful portrayal, because it's all about, positivity and respect to family. And, I really love that. But that was one of the very few things I liked and respected about the film.
That's fair, man.
And if we want to talk about Lilo, we can talk about her. And, I'm leaving out all the, there's, of course, context to some of her behavior because, she's seemingly recently lost her parents. But it seems more that, her, character arc in the film is that, she struggles to make friends, and then Stitch is the perfect friend for her. That seems to be more the film. I don't think the film wants us to believe that she's, acting out because her parents have died. I think it's more, she sees her sister as her family, but she just struggles to make friends.
Yeah.
But I did not like Lilo when she ruins practice and then punches someone. And then I really respected later that she went and apologized to the girl Myrtle, because I didn't like that character either, but I feel the apology was due. But Lilo just does not.
That's fair. I respect that, mate. Of course, each to their own.
I don't know.
Of
I might get hit for that.
No,
but
mate.
Lilo, in
I
my
respect
opinion,
that.
I don't know.
She's
very young, and of course, a lot of behavior can be excused due to youth. But it was more that it was like if it was just her behavior with Nani, I wouldn't have an issue because that's just what being a young person is. That's what being a younger sister is. But when I think the other younger children in the film were acting, at least civil with her, and then she was more of the aggressor.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you mentioned the character of Nani because we've always talked about characters, so we've had cinematic.
Is this someone that you fancy, Matthew?
Yeah, not now, but like back when I watched this, we always talk about cinema crushes that we've had, and yeah, she was definitely up there. Like, I can't even lie. I had a big crush on her back in the day. But looking back, she's quite a nice character. I think she's got a lot of flaws, of course. Like she's maybe not she's not that parental instinct maybe just yet. But there's a lot of funny instances there with like, I just love Bubbles, the social worker. You see, I think he's quite funny. But no, like
I will tell you, until about 5 years ago, I thought that Nani was Lilo's grandmother because.
Yeah,
because in Northern Ireland, I think a lot of people have their nanny.
Yeah.
Like
that's true. Yeah, my nanny.
I mean, I don't know what you refer to your grandmother as, but
nanny as well, actually.
Yeah, I think in other places, they have gran and nan and stuff, but I think we're all about nanny here. So
absolutely.
I don't know. I just always had that very wrong preconception in my brain.
But like one thing, this film actually, one thing it's a little bit confused. Well, it's not really confusing, but like. It's a little bit risky is that the film derives a lot of humor around the sort of social worker, sort of dysfunctional family aspect, which I think is quite, I don't think it pushes the boat too far where it becomes offensive or anything like that. But I think it is, to be fair, it's a reasonably big risk to sort of focus a lot of the humor on that. And the fact that, the parents aren't in the picture and like Nani and Lilo are struggling to sort of live together at a stage where like, I think Lilo's sort of putting nails in the door to sort of lock Nani out, and then she's like drowning her toys in like pickled onions. Like that's quite dark. But like I think because
the idea of if you can't wrangle Lilo, you might lose her. It's kind of a tragic concept that obviously Nani is incredibly worried about it. And I do agree there was maybe a bit too much humor surrounding that.
Yeah, because it kind of paranoid me as a kid. Like if I would like it's the sort of thing that I would say was put in a lot of kids' head was like if you misbehave, like you'll be taken away from your parents, kind of thing. That's how I've sort of viewed it as a kid. I think there's definitely is an argument that like a lot of kids probably feel that way as well. But like there's a lot of characters in this film. That being said, where I think I absolutely love them. Like there's a lot of great side characters in there. As I said, Bubbles, the social worker slash former CIA agent. I love David, who's like Nanny's romantic interest, and Pleakley as well. I think he's great. And we haven't really mentioned Stitch, but he's so cute. I love him. So cute, even though maybe he might be a murderer.
I mean, did he kill anyone?
No,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't
Probably
think
not.
so.
Hope not.
Yeah, I think he was captured and imprisoned, but before he got the opportunity to actually harm anyone.
Yeah.
But you know, I sort of talked about my first impression of Lilo, and we've talked a little bit about Nanny, but obviously the first impression that the film gives you of her isn't great either. You know, like she runs in front of a car and then kicks it. And later I did warn to her, you know, because above all else, like she's trying with Lilo. You know, the reason that she was angry and kicked the car was because she's trying so hard to be there for Lilo. But then I sort of changed my tune. Like I added this note when I was thinking about it this morning because I watched it yesterday, but I was sort of having to think about it this morning. And I mean, you know, they pick Stitch up from an animal shelter, and I think then you should assume that he's probably been rescued. Like, you know, obviously at that moment where they've adopted him, they don't know he's an alien. They don't know that he's not like a an Earth animal. So like at that point, you know, if you pick up a dog or any other animal from a shelter, you it's safe to assume that they've been rescued from an abusive environment. And then when he causes damage to your house and isn't like your perspective of an ideal pet, she kicks and punches him.
Yeah, yeah. Like,
Like there's one point where they've brought him into the water, which you shouldn't like drag your like, you know, if it's a dog, you shouldn't drag your dog into the water. So like you've forced him onto a surfboard, and then he's like Nanny believes that he's like holding Lilo's leg down, which he isn't. But you know, even if he was, she starts booting him in the head.
for Stitch. Stitch is the unsung hero here. Like, I don't know. I think Stitch is like, I really like Stitch. He's so cute, and I think he's got actually a really cool character design as well. To be honest, and like that being said, I think the animation here actually is great. Like, there's a lot of unusual looking aliens in there as well, and like you said, I think the Nanny character definitely has her flaws for sure, absolutely, and like there's a lot of like there's one quote I have in here, and this isn't from Nanny, but like it's when Lilo it's when Lilo was taken away by the aliens, and then completely goes, "Look at the bright side. You won't have to yell at anyone anymore." I was like, that is a brutal line. That is brutal.
I
Like,
know,
I think this film is
and
generally
like
is quite
that's
funny.
yeah, that sort of felt inconsistent with politically because he was sort of like all about keeping Lilo safe and you know not
Yeah,
shooting Stitch when she was in the proximity. So like
yeah,
for her to just be taken away, probably to her death, he seems way too cool with it.
yeah. He sort of reminded me of like a C3PO kind of vibe to him, to be
Oh
honest
yeah.
with you, a little bit like that. But yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you, buddy, and this is just a general alien point movie anyway. Sorry, that sentence didn't make sense. An alien movie point. Do you ever find it weird that alien movies, the aliens always refer to Earth as Earth and not like something else? Because I always find it a bit
Yeah,
strange. Like humans have coined
yeah,
Earth. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
yeah.
It's a bit weird to me.
I mean, it's the same issue as you know, how can they speak English? Is
Yeah.
what the language that they're speaking just being presented to the audience is English. But obviously, that's not the case here because they speak like they converse with Lilo and with Nani. You know,
Mhm.
all the aliens are able to, and you
Yeah.
know, and then you hear people say, "Oh, it can be like a universal communicator," but then not everyone will have that. You know, especially Earthlings who aren't aware of that technology.
Yeah.
Like it's all iffy and it's all just for the sake of presentation. You know,
That's true.
and yeah, obviously, I have an issue with it. You know, there's no avoiding it.
Yeah, that's true, man. I respect that for sure.
And how big of a dick move was like the adoption worker telling Lilo that Stitch isn't a real name? It's like, well, like what's in a name? You know, it's
Yeah,
letters and
exactly.
mixed a word. You know, if it's
Yeah,
a
I
word, it can
know.
be a name. Like especially a pet name.
Yeah, I know. Like it's, I've heard more unusual names for dogs. To be honest with you, I think Stitch is perfectly okay. Um, But yeah,
I think
like
it's weirder to call your animal a human name.
whoa. Ollie's a lovely name. But no, I quite like. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of good dog names out there, isn't there? Stitch is. I don't know. It's not one I would use, but I wouldn't. I think it's a perfectly serviceable dog name or pet name in general, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
And Matthew, we talked about many months ago. We talked about the package films, which were released around like the 1940s of Disney.
Mhm.
And sort of a trend in that was where in certain sections of those films, just suddenly like Mickey Mouse would roll out on screen, but it would be like live action dancers. Just
Yeah.
doing a little dance, and then Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck come out and dance with them. Like, I got a surge of that, like upset. Where they have the live action picture of Elvis amongst the animation. I
Yes,
just looked
it's
fucked.
unusual,
It's
isn't it? It's
fucked.
really weird. Like
Yeah, I don't like that.
yeah, it's sort of something what we were saying, like Atlantis, like the 2D animation with 3D animation works, but like real life images do not compute with 2D animation for me at all. It was so jarring.
Yeah,
Does
no,
Elvis
a
have
lot of the time
some?
it just doesn't look quite right.
Does Elvis have a connection to Hawaii, or is it just like a plot point in the movie that Lilo really likes Elvis?
Not to my knowledge. Yeah, I think it
I
must
don't
just
know.
be maybe her parents were fans, but yeah, no,
Yeah,
I can't think of any immediate connection. If I'm on it, are you looking it up?
I'm
Like,
look. I'm
if
just
I'm honest,
looking
I'm
if he
not.
was born in Hawaii, but I don't think he was.
No, I'm not
No,
really a massive Elvis fan, so I
no,
wouldn't
me
know much
neither.
about him. But
Yeah, no worries.
I don't have much on the end of the film, but I just sort of wanted to ask you about a general question that really is, about Stitch's development throughout the entire film.
Go for it, bro.
Do you really think that Stitch is capable of overcoming like biological programming through sheer force of will? Because
Yeah, I
if it
know what
was
you
a
mean.
simple like thing of he was born and then it's like a nature versus nurture argument, I think it's a bit more. Well, I mean, I guess it's a little less difficult here because he was created in a lab, so surely he shouldn't be able to override that. Surely everything about him should be as made. Like, you can't perfectly cultivate a human being that's just been born by two people, making a baby. But if every part of his personality has been handpicked by, is it Jumba?
Yeah.
Then I feel like he shouldn't be able to overcome that.
Yeah, it's a good point, dude. Like Disney is always a hard balance between realism and in the case that you were saying, versus like the message of the film with the nature versus nature, nature versus nurture argument. So I think maybe the overall message was right in that Stitch and Lilo form that friendship and that bond, but looking at it probably a deeper level, it probably shouldn't be the case, given that he was like scientifically engineered or whatever. But no, I know what you mean. But it's a sort of similar thing what we were saying about like the realism of Earth and aliens speaking English, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, if you look at the message, it's that family helps you overcome struggle, and connection is what gets you through the bad times. But
Yeah.
if the bad times have been foisted on you biologically, not through like circumstance of life, or by like you know cosmic coincidence or whatever,
Hmm.
I feel like
Yeah.
it's
Of
it's a bit
course.
questionable as to whether he should have been capable of that.
Of
Do
course,
you have
mate,
anything
for sure.
further on Lilo and Stitch?
Nothing for me, buddy. If you've got nothing else, I'd love to hear your rating for this one, pal.
So, as I said, I think you have to have certain personality traits to be the lead in a Disney film. I think every time that we've seen a princess, they've always been likable. I would say throughout the history of Disney, almost every lead character is very likable, and I think a lot of the behavior of Lilo can be excused by her age, and then some of Nani's behavior can be excused by what like the fact that she's trying really hard to keep Lilo in her life. A lot of her actions towards Stitch questionable. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
I sort of struggled a lot through the film, but I think a lot of it comes together in the end where I can see past a lot of stuff. But some of the stuff with Stitch that I've mentioned before, I had a few issues with. As you said, it looks amazing. No issues with the voice cast. A lot of the universe that they establish, with it sort of breadth across the galaxy, is impressive in one film. Uh, I quite enjoyed watching it, but it was more on reflecting on it that I had more issues. So I would give it a 7.5 out of 10.
Fair enough, buddy. Yeah, love that. Love that. For me, I think I love this film growing up, man. It's one of my favorite Disney films. I think the plot is interesting yet unusual. Hawaii, as we've said, great setting for a Disney film, especially an alien kids film. I love Lilo and Stitch, their bond. And so many great side characters here with Pleakley, Bubbles, and then the dance instructor as well. He seems like a lovely guy. And yeah, I think this film is a really good script, really good animation, and it's going to be a 10 out of 10, pal. I love it. I love it. I know. I think there's a live action one in development for Disney Plus, I think.
Yeah, I read that. That sounds awful. Like they should know when to control themselves.
Yeah,
Like
they
that,
should.
it's just gonna not like, because I mean the
Artemis
best
Fowl.
possible scenario is that it's received as well as the animated. Like
Yeah.
people love Aladdin, and then people really liked the live action one. So if Aladdin the animated one's a 10 out of 10, the live action one was like an 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
That's still not like your best outcome because you've still made a remake that's worse than the original.
Yeah.
So unless you can actually actively make it better, then what is the point other than money? And people won't like pay for it unless they're convinced that it's going to be good. So I think if they tried to do that, I think it would be a disaster.
I'm exactly the same, buddy. For sure.
Also, how terrible is Stitch going to look?
Awful. Like if we thought Artemis Fowl was a bad film, this film probably would be garbage as well.
Because I mean, a lot of people dislike the original design for Sonic the Hedgehog, even though I kind of liked it. I'll be honest.
Yeah, it was
I definitely preferred the original design of Sonic the Hedgehog to the one that was released theatrically. Like I don't know. I had issues with like I don't know, just like how glossy his eyes looked, and how
that's fair.
Big his hands were. Like I don't know. It didn't look right to me, but I have to imagine people will have a big issue with how Stitch is adapted because I think he's going to look like the original Sonic the Hedgehog, just with more hair.
Mm-hmm. No, it probably will, mate, to be honest with you. Is the next film Treasure Planet?
It is.
It is, yeah, okay. And this stars one of my favorite actors, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Yay, he is.
I knew you'd be buzzed. And a lot of the music is kind of 500 Days of Summer, sort of like quirky. Like,
yeah, it is.
During there's a few montages where they're playing sort of like quirky, upbeat music of that kind of genre.
It kind of reminded me of like modern religious music in the sense, or like Nickelback or something like that. It was really weird music, but it worked for the film. This film is really unique, isn't it? It doesn't feel like a Disney film at all. It's got really cool animation. It's just really quirky. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but I quite liked it. Not bad.
Yeah, I mean, previously, we've talked a lot about today about how these are sort of fresh kind of films, something fresh and new, at least amongst sort of like the mediocrity of a lot of Disney films.
Yeah.
And whenever Disney adapts like a classic tale or like a myth or a legend or something like Robin Hood, the biggest twist they put on it is like, what if it's the story but they're animals?
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest twist that they're willing to do. But, I think this change where they've moved it from like a nautical tale to like a space exploration tale is, it doesn't change the plot fundamentally, but, it just makes it so much fresher. It makes it fit in with the times at which it was released. It feels more accessible because it's less boring. Like I think I've never been one for like a nautical tale like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, no,
it's not for me. So, I think like having watched a lot of Star Wars recently, I think space exploration is sort of where my mind's at the moment. I mean, Star Trek is a step too far. That's not for me. But, space exploration of the Star Wars kind or the kind here, I think just made it sort of feel a lot fresher.
Yeah, that's great, buddy. And you know what it is, like I don't know if you've heard of the Borderlands video games, but like over lockdown, over lockdown I was playing a lot of Borderlands. And this film is remarkably similar to that, and I think maybe that's why I like it so much. The whole flying through space to try and find these portals which open up to find treasure. It's exactly that, to be honest. And it's great, and the animation style in both Borderlands and this is very similar as well, sort of the 2D 3D thing. I think this film's kind of, in a weird way, it reminds me of sort of like the anime Spirited Away, in the sense that it's such a crazy, wacky style with so many crazy, wacky characters. Some of them are like tentacle crab creatures, some of them are like cyborg dogs, some of them are like anthropomorphic cats. You know what I mean? It's really weird. There's not really, I can't really pin down what the sort of vibe is, but it's unique. It's very Spirited Away. I quite like that. And it's sort of pirates, like you said, buddy. It's like pirate space adventure meets Guardians of the Galaxy meets all these different things. It's weird. I think it works.
Yeah, one of the weird and wacky characters is basically like a walking butthole, which sort of
Yeah.
it showed it really shows the age of their
Yeah, it
intended
does.
audience, because
It does, doesn't it?
I think I'm over the hill on fart humor. They have
Yeah,
an entire fart language called flatula. Like it's I think
I agree.
I think I'm over toot jokes at this point.
Have you ever seen the film Mars Needs Moms?
No, I have not.
The opening of this film is very similar to that in the sense that I actually expected Jim's mother to be like a kind of a main character in this, but she's barely really in it, to be honest.
Yeah, and I expected his dad to have a bit more significance, because they never show his face, so I was maybe hoping for a reveal.
Yeah,
Dad a little extra depth. I
yeah.
mean, you don't always need that, obviously. Sometimes it's a bit like of an eye
I
roll
know what
if
you
they're
mean,
like,
though. I know what you
I'm your
mean.
father. So
Yeah,
like since Empire Strikes Back, any revelation that someone is someone's father, it can go either way.
yeah. I know what you mean, but I know what you mean. One thing I wanted to say about the character of Jim is he is the weirdest. I know I've had some dodgy haircuts, as the viewers have seen on this channel, but like Jim's haircut is one of the weirdest I've seen.
Short back and sides and a ponytail.
It's very Anakin Skywalker, isn't it? It's
Yeah, but he at
unusual.
least had like the ponytail was like connected to the rest of his hair though. But
Yeah,
like this is
yeah,
like he has like, is it a like it's like sort of the like ultimate Spider-Man cut, where he has like the two like elongated pieces at the front, then short back and sides, but with the ponytail just coming out of the middle of the back of his head.
yeah. It's unusual. I like it. It's unusual for sure.
And there's a montage in this film of sort of the scenes where Long John Silver and Jim Hawkins like befriend each other, and I was initially bored by the work montage because he was just doing dishes and shit. And I
Yeah.
suppose because we've been watching like the Rocky films recently, they're famous for their montages. I maybe had my standards for sort of a narrative montage were a bit too high. But like when Silver started like doing fatherly activities with Jim, I found it really sweet.
I
And
agree. I agree. Yeah.
surprisingly, and like it was very surprising, like given by even at that point, the film had already presented him as like the film's antagonist. So it was weird, because usually the befriending would happen before that revelation to the audience.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I think that sort of dynamic is very smart. It did kind of keep me guessing, is he going to be a bad guy? Is he secretly a good guy? Like, you know what I mean? And I'm glad that
Yeah.
that character does have a sort of redemption arc as well by the end. I think the whole mutiny scene is actually very good, I think. But then again, like all the characters it's sort of confusing. It's like there's no real like, sometimes in like a classic pirate film or films to that degree, you'd have like some members of the crew who are good, who have no knowledge of the bad guy's secret plan, mutiny. And the only real
Yeah.
characters about in that sense is like Captain Flint, I think is his name, who hilariously dies by getting sucked into a black hole. Like he's the only character I can really think of. He's like
His name is
Captain
Arrow, and give him some
Arrow.
respect,
Sorry.
because
Who am I thinking of? Who's
that is
Captain Flint?
that
Who am I thinking
Captain
of?
Flint was like he was the guy who buried the treasure.
Okay, yes, Captain Arrow, whatever.
Arrow is. I was devastated when he died, and it was because because in that moment I knew that we wouldn't get to hear any more Roscoe Lee Brown, who voiced Kingpin in Spider-Man the Animated Series.
Was that the same guy?
Yeah, it was the same guy. Like the
Oh,
dude, like
what?
because I didn't immediately recognize where I knew it from, but I was like, I know that voice, and obviously it was a shock because he's a black actor and he was voicing the white version of Kingpin in Spider-Man the Animated Series,
Yeah.
which is that's obviously an issue in of itself, but it was just really great to hear his voice.
It is a very commanding voice, really good voice. And no, his death scene was quite was quite funny, but it was devastating as well. But like the
Yeah,
crab
it's
character,
tragic.
that crab character is a bastard,
Yeah.
isn't he? Absolute bastard.
Yeah, he definitely is. And you sort of talked about like the idea of the mutiny and why it's sort of ridiculous that like 2/3 of them are evil, and like there's only like 4 characters who aren't part of the mutiny crew. It's like,
Yeah.
if you're the vast majority, like why are
you
you even
waiting?
taking any time?
Exactly,
Yeah,
that's
like
what I thought.
exactly.
Like there's
Why
no
are you
good
waiting?
crew.
And also, yeah, why are you waiting? And also, why are you doing it? Because it's a difference between like you being morally sound and there being like 12 shares given out, or you being evil, murdering people, and only like getting, like 30, like 25% more or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like it goes from 12 shares to like 8 shares after you ideally kill off like the 4 people who aren't in your crew.
Yeah.
So like best case scenario, you get like a marginally smaller amount of money, but you've like sold your conscience. Like
Yeah, like
I don't
if
know.
anything,
It felt
like
a bit needless.
if anything, gather up the more people there is. Like, don't kill anyone off until you get back to the treasure planet. Keep everyone alive to gather as much treasure as possible. Bring it back to the ship, then kill everyone, and then go. Don't kill them before, because then you're limited in the amount of treasure you can get. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I imagine like the crab guy also would have killed off all of his fellow team members. If
Probably.
like
Yeah.
it would have been like a
He's that kind
like
of
a
guy.
Joker in the bank heist in the Dark Knight. Where he waits until they've collected all the money and then he kills them. So I suppose it was good that he died before that was able to happen. But yeah, the plan's just a bit iffy.
Yeah.
I have no idea why Jim thinks out loud and like gives the pirates all the answers and he helps them find the treasure, and he's sort of just like, oh, like all that they've asked him to do is like open the map, but he's opened the map, helped them follow it, then he's described through his exposition like that it's a portal device, then he helps them pick the right portal. Like they're like, oh, what portal could it possibly be? And he's like, the one in the middle. Like he has 100% helped them to the treasure.
Yeah.
But according to his character, the thing he most wants is for them to not find the treasure. It was baffling.
It's very like Peter Parker in Spider-Man animated series, where like he thinks out loud kind of thing.
Yeah, because but he's literally speaking to them. Like he's like, oh yeah, you should press the middle one. Like if he's worried about being killed, like helping them to the treasure isn't going to help the situation. Like I know it's where the treasure is booby trap, but Jim didn't know that. So to his knowledge, he's helping them find the treasure. They're going to take the treasure back to the ship. They're going to kill him. Like once they've had his help with the map, he's dead anyway. So like, why help them get the treasure at all?
The more and more I think about it, like there's never like a treasure movie where like there's no real like complications getting the treasure. Like in every treasure film there's just like a booby trap where there's no treasure at all or it's fake. Like you never just go there and like the treasure actually says where it actually is and there's no qualms or problems achieving that treasure.
I mean, it'd be a
there's always an issue.
Less conflict.
There's like it does slightly annoy me. Like I wish these, even though they're bad guys, I wish they just had no problem just in and out and then bam. But anyway.
Yeah, especially because like really, if you're Captain Flint, like what is the point in having more money than you can ever spend, and then even in death, you booby trap it so that no one else can have it? It's like, well, you can't spend it when you're dead. Like who cares who gets it after that? Like how can you be like that selfish and like that money hungry that you want to physically hold it, when you're dead? I just don't understand the motivation.
One thing, Callum, you probably know more about this than I do, but like if let's say one day we're out in the town and we find like this massive mountain of gold, does that gold, if we suddenly go to sell it, is that not worthless now because there's so much gold now that like how does that work? Would it still be worth a fortune, or would it be worth less because there's so much of it? If you know what I mean, like because it's not rare anymore, does that deplete its value?
Yeah, I mean, when you have like sort of a market flooded with the same thing, like usually the general rule is like the more that there is of something, the less rare it is, the less valuable it is.
Yeah.
But sometimes just through rumors and stuff, value can be attributed to things. Like diamonds.
Yeah.
Like diamonds actually, like on principle, are worthless. It's just that like
Oh, really?
like it's literally just compressed carbon, but like engagement rings companies like came up with this, and it was called like the Great Diamond Scam, where they like just attributed value to that, and like sort of in the way that like they sort of shamed men for not doing stuff, like like a lot of like 1940s sort of advertisements and sort of stuff for the consideration of men's mental health. Men were like shamed into doing some stuff, like through the idea of like you're not being manly or things like that. They basically put out the message that if you didn't buy your girlfriend a diamond ring, you were a twat. I was going to use a worse word, but you're basically a dickhead because you haven't bought your girlfriend a diamond ring. But the only reason because diamond rings are valuable is because the companies that
attributed a random value to them.
Yeah, they just said these are valuable, and then that got like baked into society so much that everybody believed it, but there's actually no reason to. You know,
Yeah, because
it was just the societal pressure.
yeah, because if one day the like scientists found out the whole world was made out of gold, as unlikely that may seem, that would probably make all gold valueless. You know what I mean? Because it's everywhere. It's the sort of thing like,
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of an example like plastic. That's a bad example because it's
yeah,
not natural. But like, do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Anyway,
yeah.
um,
It's how spreadable the knowledge is. Like, if
yeah,
everybody knows that it's valueless, then everyone would just be like, well, we'll just agree not to trade in it. So yeah, you know, if you have a whole, like, a planet's core full of gold, I suppose because you know, in this world they have like the whole galaxy open to them. You know, they can travel wherever, so they can
that's
just go
true.
to a place where gold is really valuable. You know, but on the one planet that we have here, yeah, if there was like a whole treasure trove of anything, it would probably become valueless.
Yeah, that's interesting. Mate. It's interesting. I actually don't have any more notes, mate. I'm out of notes on this one. Anything
Well,
from you?
I would say the last big thing about the film is Long John Silver's redemption, where he,
Yes.
instead of taking the treasure, saves Jim. And I just wanted your thoughts on that, because in my opinion, I do feel the redemption felt earned. You know, because I would say the least earned redemption in cinema history is probably Darth Vader
Yeah, we've talked about that,
at
haven't
the
we?
end of
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi, because you know he just is the absolute worst, and then does one good act, which is just saving his child, which is just basic decency. Like, you know, it's a selfish act because you're saving your child. You know, like it's not even a selfless act. But then he goes to force heaven. Here, I actually feel that the redemption's earned, and the hug was really sweet. And I truly believe he didn't actually want to hurt anyone. You know, I don't think it was just Jim. I don't think Jim was so good a guy that he like convinced Long John Silver to be a good guy. Like, I think he was always a good guy, and
Yeah,
he
no, I
didn't
agree.
have any like harmful intent. You know, I think he was just greedy.
Yeah, for sure. I think inside he is quite a sweet character, and I'm sort of glad he got that. He definitely got that redemption arc for sure. For sure, dude. Any other points from you, Callum?
Nothing else from me. So Matthew, would you like to rate the film?
Yeah, sure, mate. So I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt always a win, even though the voice doesn't actually sound like him,
Oh
weirdly.
yeah, unrecognizable.
Yeah, maybe because he was. I suppose he was quite young at this point. What was it like, 2002? He was probably very young.
Yeah, I think so.
Um, yeah, it doesn't feel like a Disney film, but it's a nice departure, a nice change of pace. I think Jim's a very very good protagonist actually, and I quite like the relationship with Long John Silver. So I'd give this film an 8 out of 10. I think there's good tunes and really really captivating action. What about you, Cal?
Yeah, after speaking it through, I think this is probably the one that I liked most this episode. You know, it had
Awesome.
more of what I expected from Atlantis. You know, it was the alien element plus the voyage. You know, I think it was more of what I anticipated with Atlantis. So I think this met my expectations a bit more. Yeah, obviously, you know, I think the voice acting is amazing. You know, it has I just want to make sure I get his name right. Roscoe Lee Brown as Arrow was fantastic. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, although unrecognizable, I think with his voice, fantastic. And even the actor who played Long John Silver, he's actually well, he may have passed away. I'm not sure, but he's actually South African, where he's
Oh
doing.
wow.
I don't know. Is it Irish? I don't know. Like,
It's
what
a
accent is
it's
he
certainly
doing?
like a pirate accent, isn't it? It's sort of like an
I think
Irish
it's I think
twang.
it's
Yeah.
pirate and Irish. Like,
Yeah.
I was like,
I think it.
yeah, it wasn't easily placed, I guess,
Mhm.
but I thought it was great,
Yeah.
and I pretty much enjoyed everything about this film. You know, I think the standard of the animation, standard of the storytelling, and sort of the reinvigoration of this old idea. You know, I really liked everything about it, so I would give it a 9 out of 10.
Awesome, buddy. Yeah, that's great for sure. The next film we're going to be talking about in the final film of today is another one I have a lot of nostalgia for, and it's one of those films where I don't think you enjoyed it. I might be wrong. It's Brother Bear.
Yeah, well, I kind of enjoyed watching it, but I have a lot of issues with it, particularly the message, and
Okay.
we'll get into that.
Yeah,
Like,
we
I
will.
think we'll naturally proceed into that. But my very first comment was just that never in my life have I seen like the aspect ratio of a film change as it goes in as a plot device. Did you notice this?
I didn't
Where
notice
it
it, mate.
started
I
as
didn't
like
notice it. Was it like
so
really
it starts as like a
apparent?
square in the middle of the screen, and then it extends out into widescreen. And it's, I guess, a plot device to sort of mimic like uh, Kenai's like widening perspective. You know, he goes from
Okay.
like it shifts when he moves from human to bear, because his perspective on life is changing so drastically. So I really like that because I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
And I guess that's one of the first times I've been like, wow, Disney is the house of ideas. That's an idea that I'd never seen before.
The only time I've maybe heard of that is Transformers Last Night. It's so bad in that film. It's garbage.
But that's changing because they recorded like part of it in IMAX, part of it with regular cameras.
Actually,
so it's just shifting because they've edited it badly.
Yeah, that's fair. One thing in this film that blew my mind as an 18-year-old watching it now is that Joaquin Phoenix is Kenai. I didn't know that. It does. It's weird. So it's sort of like a Joseph Gordon-Levitt situation where like it simultaneously sounds and doesn't sound like him in a weird way. I don't know.
Yeah, and once again, he's not the correct ethnicity to be portraying the character.
That's true.
As with Aladdin, bit of an issue, but I suppose it doesn't impact the quality of the film, just sort of the context.
Yeah, no, for sure, mate, for sure. And the big sort of focal point of this film was like the people of this. Would you call it a tribe? Is that fair?
I believe so. Because it seems to be a small community, mostly relatives, I guess.
Yeah. The real focal point of this film was like they're all receiving like spirit animals or great spirits by the leader of the tribe, and it kind of made me want to ask you, what would be your spirit animal? Do you think?
See, we've talked about like what animal we would literally be, like if we transformed into an animal. I think did you say you were like a duck or something? Like I don't remember. Like,
I've retrospectively changed my answer, but I think it was something like an otter or a duck or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I think it wasn't an otter. I don't know why I thought duck. I know I said like if I was like I have like the traits of probably like a monkey, but like whether that's my spirit animal, because I think really it's. In this film, like the animal is linked to a meaning as well. You're not just a bear. Like you're the bear of love. You're you're like the eagle of guidance. Like whatever shit that is. So like, are you like what would you position yourself as, like that kind of idea of being an animal?
I quite like the message of seahorses mate for life. So I put the seahorse of love, waiting for that right person.
Commitment.
What is it? Yeah, seahorse of patience, seahorse of commitment. Yeah. What would you go for? What would you go for?
The dog of loyalty.
Yes, I like that.
The dog. Like, well, yeah. Am I loyal? I don't know. Like, I'm not very like.
So. I think so.
Aside from returning texts, I'd say I'm fairly dependable. If you see me in person and ask me a favor. It's okay. The virtual interaction I'm still working on. I would say, Matthew, the biggest. This is going to be a bad discussion. Like, I'm going to sound like a bad person. Did Kenai do anything wrong? I don't know.
Well,
let me lay it out.
Go for it.
Okay, so. This is just going to be like pretty much everything I have here.
I don't think you sound like a bad person at all. I think that's a perfectly fair statement.
I don't know.
So go for it.
I don't know. Well, because the entire message of the film is, changing your perspective to see it from the other side, and to see that from that other side, you were the aggressor. I'm gonna outline why I don't think that's the case. So the bear, which we never learned her name, but it's Coda's mother. So Coda's mother steals the basket. And then when they try to retrieve it, they don't go intending to kill Coda's mother. They go to retrieve the basket and then return it to their tribe. And then if they, are attacked, they'll retaliate. So she tried to kill them. And then, when they were just trying to retrieve the basket, then Sitka died, to save his brothers. And to be fair, he caused his own death, but to protect the other two from dying. So really, if he hadn't like caused the glacier to fall down and hit his death, the other two would have died. So he actually sort of, he reduced tragedy. So really, the bear is responsible for that because she would have killed two, whereas one died as a result, of his own actions. Yeah. So that's where I first questioned, should Kenai feel bad about killing the bear? But I obviously knew going in that Kenai had killed Coda's mother. So I wasn't surprised by that twist, but we'll go on to that. But really, throughout the whole film, I was thinking, I knew that the twist was coming, that it was Coda's mother that Kenai had killed, but I thought it would also reveal that they didn't actually steal the food. But they never, the film actually never says that they didn't. So they're being chased because they stole the food. Like, if the crime for that is being chased and potentially killed, like, the consequence, because this film sort of wants to present that you don't expect the level of sentience that these animals have. So when he became a bear, he didn't expect to be able to communicate with other bears or other animals. But the fact that they're that sentient makes it worse, because then they're
aware of what
understand
they're doing.
they're aware that
Yeah.
they're stealing
Good
from
point, actually.
other hungry people. And later in the film, we see that the bears are happy to kill fish for food, and that's a selfish act to feed themselves. But then when Kenai is made to feel guilty for killing a bear that tried to kill him and then caused his brother's death, he's judged morally.
Yeah, it's
like they're killing animals to feed themselves, whereas he's killing an animal out of vengeance because they just killed his brother. Well,
I know what you mean,
circumstances caused by them led to the death of his brother, which is actually a violent act.
I know where you're coming from, buddy, for sure, 100%. And it's weird because like it's clear these human characters are like killing animals to clothe themselves, because like Kunai's walking about in like some sort of like fur trousers or something, like
Yeah.
they clearly have no qualms about killing animals. And I do know where you're coming from, buddy, for sure, absolutely. And I think the message in there can be definitely put, that narrative can be split two ways. I think you can definitely side with Kenai, you can definitely side with Coda and his mother. So it's interesting. Like I thought the twist in there with that being Coda's mother was quite good. I didn't see that coming when I first watched it as a kid, so I thought that was good. But I do know what you mean, buddy. I do know what you mean. Like Kenai, he's not the worst. He's definitely not the worst character, to be honest. I do quite like him.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say he didn't do anything wrong by killing Coda's. Well, it sounds
I know,
awful, but like
I
I don't think he was wrong. Like, given the context, like I think and
it wasn't
I'll even go on
self-defense as well. It was in
a little bit more to say
self-defense.
that. Well,
Because
no,
she was rushing towards him, and he was just like,
yeah, but he chased her, like he
Yeah,
after his brother's death, like he hunted her. Like that's bad, but he hunted her out of vengeance because she caused something by stealing. And I'll go on to like why that's an issue. But even if you separate whether he was right or wrong, he should have been smart enough to realize that killing his spirit animal wasn't going to be ideal. You probably should have realized there's probably consequences to that. And even if there aren't consequences, you would think something that's meant to embody your entire being would, maybe don't kill that animal.
Yeah, like
like it was whether it was like moral or immoral, it was stupid.
That's fair, mate. And the kind of one thing that disappointed me about Kenai is that, like, I don't know why he's so disappointed that his totem animal is the bear of love. I mean, that sounds bloody great.
Yeah,
I'd love the bear of love.
Yeah, literally, it was like one of his two brothers who he doesn't even like is taking the piss out of him. Like, the only time I'm sort of like affected by people taking the piss out of me is like when it's people that I like, that I want to like me. So if I had like a brother who was like just a complete dickhead, I wouldn't care what he had to say to me. Like, if I'm an adult, which he, I think the point of the film is that he's recently turned 18 and this is like his journey to becoming a man. Are you really going to be that affected by your brother taking the piss? Like, other than that, I think it's a great totem.
I do think it's quite a good totem as well. And there's one funny line where he's like, "Who wants to trade?" I think that's quite a good line in there. And one thing I will say about, we've talked about like the action scenes there with Coda's mother and Kenai and Sitka and stuff. I think the use of, like, it's weird. I haven't really seen shaky cam used in an animated film before. It actually is really good. Mm-hmm. Like it adds real like violence and stuff to that sort of film, because like I would not want to encounter a bear in real life, but it that way, like these things would like tear you apart. So it was really well done. Really well done.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea how that's achieved, like how you can do shaky cam or different angles. Idea. Like, obviously, if you like just switch between angles, that's just you cutting to having drawn it from a different perspective or animated it from a different perspective. I don't know how you do like a shot where you move through the world, like through the universe. Like, there was a moment which was 3D animated in Treasure Planet where Jim like falls down the stairs or something. And then they sort of like pan down and in, and like it just like moved across like
Yeah, I remember that.
chairs or something, like, and I'm like, you sort of spend a lot of money and a lot of time and effort like doing quite a like a shot of something that's like completely unnotable, like they're going past chairs or going past people or something.
Yeah.
I have no idea how that's achieved.
I
It's
know
still
it's weird.
something to like really respect.
For sure, dude. For sure. I mean, I remember like Sitka's death crushed me as a kid. So I actually quite like Sitka. Like but like when you compare like the Bear of Love to the Eagle of Guidance, like they're on par in my opinion. I can't remember what the other brothers totem is.
No, I don't remember either.
Is it like, it's not like the mammoth or something? No, what is it? I can't remember what it is, but
I genuinely have no idea.
Yeah.
I was not paying attention in the first like 10-15 minutes really. Like I didn't even see the mum get killed, honestly.
Yeah. No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it's a slow burn at the start.
So, we've talked a lot about, whether he was right or wrong to kill the bear, but, we at least know from Coda's perspective and from the perspective of all the bears, I mean, they are, like, the humans are hunters, but, where, Kenai called, bears monsters, it turns out that that's the perspective of Coda for humans. So Coda finds the humans to be monsters. If that's the case, why would you steal from them if you know the risk?
It's a good point, actually. Yeah.
If the bears just stayed out of their way and didn't steal their food, like if I break into your house, Matthew, and like I come in and like it's not like going into someone's house nowadays and like stealing a pint of milk or something. This might be the only sustenance that their entire tribe gets, and if you've stolen like a whole like week's worth of rations for like the entire tribe,
a couple of them could die from that.
Some of them could die.
Yeah.
So like if the only food in your fridge was like a single cheeseburger and I broke into your house and ate it, like if you clubbed me over the head, how am I gonna blame you? Like
Yeah, that's
like,
a good point actually. That's a really good point.
Or if you come to club me, I punch you in the face and then I accidentally like miss swing and like punch one of your family members out the window and they die. That is 100% on me. Like if I break into someone's house, steal food, and cause the death of one of their family members, if I go to prison or I'm killed inadvertently, I don't think anyone would blame anyone but me. But as soon as it's
such a good point. I'm actually with you on that one.
As soon as it's an animal with sentience in a Disney film, that's where the issue arises.
I'm with you. I think I'm with you in that consensus, mate. Yeah. I was a bit unsure at the start, but I think you've won me over now. I do quite like that. I do agree with you. Like we've mentioned before, dude.
Like, no, I'm not saying that. No.
We've mentioned before about the good music choices in these recent Disney Renaissance films, and Phil Collins was a highlight of Tarzan. I think we can agree. And here, I think he has a good song as well. I think he's quite good. It's not as good as Tarzan though for me, but it's quite good. It's quite good. And I think there's a song, Great Spirits is my favorite song in here. I think it's very good. And it's weird because like I remember for a while every Disney film we watched was pretty much a musical, but I'm sort of glad they've sort of moved away from that, to be honest.
I was concerned momentarily when like Coda began to sing, and it was like the most like it cut through me, his voice.
Yeah.
Like it was horrendous.
Yeah, I know.
And I was so glad that the film recognized that, made fun of it, and put a stop to it.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was smart on their part.
For sure.
And
for sure.
If you want to sort of like I think really the main argument or discussion to be had about this film is the moral side of it, of like who was in the wrong, who was in the right. So I feel like a lot of the plot is covered under that, because a lot of the moments and revelations are really just to add to that narrative, that message. So if we want to like sort of skip ahead to the end, Sitka, the spirit in the sky, he comes down as an eagle and guides Denahi to Kenai, but it's before he's changed back, so he's still a bear. And unless Coda had come in to intercept and like not knock Denahi back, he would have killed Kenai, and it would have been Sitka's fault. He's led him to that situation.
Yeah, like so Sitka would have been like an accomplice in the crime, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean,
it's never really explained how the spirit stuff works. Like 1 minute, like can they not? It seems like they can't talk when they're human spirits. It's weird.
Yeah, and then also like. The character of Sitka is sort of meant to see, he's meant to be like the morally righteous character of the film. He's the one that turns Kenai into the bear. after he's killed Coda's mother. Like, Sitka, you died trying to kill the mother. Like, he plunged his spear into the ice to try and like bring the mum down with him.
Yeah.
And then he's like,
how did that kill him?
And then he's like, I mean, I guess the fall probably would kill you.
Yeah.
Or like landed on his own spear. But like he has tried, like, all that Kenai's done is succeeded where Sitka failed, but he feels that he needs to teach Kenai a lesson, even though like it's a lesson that he hasn't been taught himself.
It felt like Sitka was just like fucking with him at that point, wasn't it? That was weird.
Yeah, and then so I was just gonna say, like, he seems like a bad brother. Like they seem to love Sitka, but like he tries to kill the mom, then turns Kenai into a bear to try to teach him a lesson, even though he had already tried to kill the mom, and that's why he's dead. And then also he leads his other brother to try and kill him in bear form. It's like it does just seem like he's teasing him, and then he didn't turn him back into a bear until like the last moment where he could have possibly like been stabbed.
Yeah. Oh, Sitka, he's the real villain here. I think we've established.
Yeah, piece of shit.
Is it Michael?
Nah, it's the dead bear. That's the real villain of the film.
Was the character of Tug played by, was it Michael Clark Duncan?
I don't even know who that is.
You know the guy who played, I think it was the guy who played King.
No, I know the actor.
Oh, right, okay.
I know the actor. I don't know the character.
You know the big leader bear in the river who was like telling stories and telling jokes, no? The massive one.
If you want to look that up.
I'll have a wee look here. But no, like, did you ever watch the original like 1990s Mighty Morphin Power Rangers? Like the original ones?
Bits and pieces.
Like, do you know Tommy from that?
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of like Sitka in the sense that he's got like the long hair and like the goatee, in a sense that I kind of got those kind of vibes. It was Michael Clark Duncan, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, anyway, I have no more points.
Two kingpins back to back.
Yeah, literally, mate. But yeah, I have actually no points, by Brother Bear. I have no remaining points. Anything from you?
I just wanted to talk about his decision at the very end to remain a bear, because it's sort of in a similar vein to The Little Mermaid, where Ariel like commits herself to a life on Earth, like on above the sea with legs and everything, so that she can live her life with Eric. And I would have thought that surely where we sort of criticized the fact that like King, what is his name? King Triton, has the power to give her legs, but doesn't bother to like give her legs like on land, but then when she goes into the sea, give her a tail. Like that would be so easy, but he's like forced her to commit to one life.
Yeah, I remember talking about
where
that.
Here, I would have liked. Well, I mean, the logical step would have been that because he bears the totem of the bear, maybe just wearing that would allow him to communicate with the bears, and that's how he could keep his relationship with Coda. Like, I really don't think the film should have forced him to make that decision.
Yeah, I know. And like it's a weird one, because I remember another point about this film was like in this, there's a second film where I think Kenai has like a romantic interest who's a human, but then turns into a bear also, or something along those lines. It's kind of weird, because this film, I kind of wish it gave him the option to stay. But like it's weird because this film doesn't really have a romantic interest at all as well. Same with Little Treasure Planet, does it? That I can think of. Yeah,
and like now, as you said, like for a relationship in the future to work that we don't think's fucked, he does need like a human to turn into a bear. Like you can't just be a bear in a relationship with a woman. You can't be in a man who looks like it, because he isn't a bear. He's a man who looks like a bear. So if he's having sex with a bear, that's fucked. Why do we talk about bestiality in every Disney episode? Why does that come up in every Disney episode? Like, of all the franchises.
Yeah. Oh man, it probably that's a good one. But any more points from you, dude?
No, nothing else from me. Matthew, would you like to give your rating of the film?
Of course, mate. So I have huge nostalgia for this one, buddy.
Is this a 10 out of 10?
No, it's not 10 out of 10. I love the I wish there would have been a romance in here, to be honest with you. I'm a big sucker for romances. I like the Kenai character. I like Sitka for the most part. I don't like Denai, but he's okay by the end. I love, by the way, like they show him getting more grizzled and like being more mature, and they add a little bit of facial hair.
Yeah.
For me, I think animation's great. The songs are great. There's a few annoying a few annoying side characters in there, but apart from that, 8 out of 10. Sorry, 8.5 out of 10. I'll boost it up. What about you, mate?
Yeah, so really, a lot of the Disney plots are generic, and a lot of the characters can be unlikable. And I think at this point we've come to expect that. But what they really need to be resolute in is a good message. And it seems that the message of this film is, change your perspective, see it from the other side. But then when that message is completely flawed, and when you look from the other side, and his and the the mother still attacked them. Like, they
Yeah,
just wanted to retrieve their
yeah,
salmon, but you stole from them and then tried to attack them. And then there's this, entire montage where he like looks back on the events like from the other side, and he's like, "Oh yeah," and I'm like, "What?" Like, she still stole from you. You just tried to get the
yeah.
basket back, and
Literally.
then she attacked you, and then your brother died. Like, you have three reasons there to be
So much
vengeful,
death. So
and
much death.
and the film wants to convince you that he's on the wrong side, and that
Yeah,
he needs some sort of like moral improvement. I feel if a Disney film doesn't have a message, like, it has nothing.
yeah.
So I
That's
think I
true.
think that this film is deeply flawed because that's not strong enough. I think this was like a half baked idea, and they thought, like, because conceptually it sounds like a good idea. I read the plot description. It was like, he like needlessly kills a bear, turns into one. I was like, great. And then I knew the twist, and I was like, great twist. And then, but it's just the message that I feel makes the film itself
I
fundamentally
agree with you,
flawed.
mate. I agree with you.
But
That's a good point.
as you said, I love the voice cast. Yeah, I like both his brothers, even though there's a bit of questionable morality there. But I have to say, for the most part, I enjoyed myself watching it. So I'd still give it, I think, a generous 7.
I mean, I think your point there about the morality of the film is a really good one. I don't think it makes you sound awful at all. I agree with you, to be honest with you. But yeah, thanks so much, guys, for watching this episode. And I suppose just before we actually conclude, we should do a little bit of future episode chat.
Yeah, so we've been trying to pump out as many as much content as possible. You've been putting out your shorter solo videos that I think people are really responding to. I've certainly enjoyed watching.
Thanks very much, man.
We've been trying to do a few more mini reviews, the less podcast, well, more podcast episodes than we used to do, but not quite as many as we did during the sort of like
Peak
lockdown that didn't
lockdown,
seem
yeah.
like it was ever going to end. We were doing then about 3 episodes a week, but now we're doing about one every 5 days.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's still fairly frequent. That's still 3 every 2 weeks, really. So
yeah.
trying to put out more podcasts. We put out Matt Matthew's been putting out the solo videos. So we also wanted to do a bit more of a push with the mini reviews. So
Absolutely.
we're going to be recording 2 over the weekend. Godmothered and Mank. We've previously talked about Citizen Kane in classic American films. If in advance of Mank, our Mank review, you want to go back and listen to that, we really enjoyed it, and I think that was both to both our surprise. Because I would say when it comes to films, a lot of the time the most popular ones aren't always the best. There's been a few a few notable exceptions to that. Citizen Kane, I would say. The Graduate is one of my favorite films of all time. It's
Absolutely.
obviously
It's a good show.
critically praised. But we're trying to put out a few more mini reviews, catch up on some ones that we missed. Hopefully talk about Tenet. We've covered New Mutants, and there was another one,
Bill and
wasn't there, that we
Ted.
did recently?
Bill and
And
Ted.
Bill and Ted Face the Music. So if you want to check those out, those are ones that we missed because we weren't able to see them in the cinema. A few ones that are coming up just in the next few weeks, mini review wise, or they might be episodes because they're quite dense discussions, I guess. Wonder Woman 1984, that's coming out on Christmas Day. Well, it's coming out on Christmas Day in America on HBO Max. It's coming out in cinemas here on the 17th. Do you think you're going to be making the trip to the cinema for that?
Oh, I didn't know it was out like next week. Is it?
Yeah, it's out next week. Here, yeah.
I kind of want to.
I
I
don't
kind of
know.
want to, but
Yeah, my dad's sort of suggesting that I go.
I kind of want to. I might do. It kind of amazes me, mate. Going back to the American Classics one, that one was. I know we didn't record it in one go. That was 3.5 hours long.
What was it?
Yeah, that was like three. I was
Yeah,
like,
that was
what was that,
crazy.
3.5? That was a good one.
And
Yes,
I would say at least 2.5 hours of that was one sitting, and then I think we did talk about Gone with the Wind for a full hour.
yeah, that was a good episode. That was one of my favorites. But yeah, as Callum said, Wonder Woman 84, Tenet, and Mulan. Probably we'll probably try and get Soul, yes, as well. We'll probably try and get those
that's
done.
the new release.
Hopefully by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we've mentioned our Christmas Classics pod, which is probably the big one towards the end of the year, which we're going to be doing. And yeah, hopefully, guys, as well, if you're still here at this point in the video, our friend Cash, we've had a couple episodes with him. Hopefully, we're going to be reviewing The Perfect Date, another awful Netflix rom-com, which we'll all make fun of and laugh at with him. Maybe before New Year's, maybe a bit after it, just whenever works for him, of course. And yeah, I think next week, like you were saying, this week, buddy, we've got a Spider-Verse podcast coming out where we're talking about that kind of Spider-Man 3 and everything like that. We're also doing Mank and Godmother, like you said, and then we're also doing Rocky Part 2 next week, and probably with like another mini review, whatever. But yeah, a lot of content coming out for you guys as well. And thanks to everyone who supported us recently. We really do, honestly do appreciate that massively. And yeah, thanks so much for today, Callum. Appreciate you introducing me to another 4 films. And stay tuned for the channel coming up because we got so much content for you guys. So yeah, hope you guys are all safe and well and take care.